Hey everyone, JT here. Welcome to the Huddle. And if you're tuning in for the first time or you've been tuning in since the get-go, the Huddle is where I sit down and have conversations with other successful people from the world of sports and coaching. And the whole purpose of our conversation is to learn more about them and to learn about their journey to greatness. And the reason, success always leaves clues. So I just wanted to welcome everyone today. Happy Friday if you're tuning in live, or happy whatever day it is if you're catching the replay. Today, I'm enthused and super grateful that I'm able to bring on a good friend. Today, my guest is Kris Potter. And so welcome to the show, Kris.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries. So for all of those beyond Kris being a good friend, okay, he is a longtime educator, okay, he is an amazing basketball coach of a perennial powerhouse in the province, I would say, nationally. And Kris comes from a diverse background. He's an amazing dad, okay, he's an amazing husband. So I really wanted to bring him on and really hear more about his journey. So thanks again, Kris, for coming on.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries. So, Kris, what I would love to know, or what I'm sure everyone's thinking is, what was? Do you have a favorite memory from sport? Like, was there this one memory or experience that really hooked you and developed this love of sport for yourself?
You know what? I don't know if there's a specific memory exactly, but I know when I was 8. I don't come from a sporty family background. No one in my family plays sports. But when I was 8 years old, I used to live up north in Sudbury. We had just moved into our new home, and I remember this. This isn't this specific event, but this was sort of something that got me hooked. So we moved in, and I remember I was doing some chores, and these 3 boys came up to me and said, "Hey, do you want to train with us tomorrow?" And I was like, I didn't know what it meant. I was like, yeah. I just wanted new friends, right? So I was like, yeah, sure. So they said, okay, we'll be out here at like 8 a.m. So I was out there the next morning, and it would have seemed bizarre if you saw us, but the 4 of us, we went for a jog around the block, and then we came back, and then we did like push-ups and sit-ups. And then I learned that they played hockey and they played baseball. And it was them bringing me into this training, and then learning about baseball and hockey, where I kind of got hooked. And I guess the one thing that sort of led me into coaching, not necessarily sports, but coaching, was my experience working as a counselor at Olympia Sports Camp. That had massive impact on me, and my life, and the direction my life went.
Awesome. No, and it's interesting. Like, what I'm really hearing from you is, at first, sport provided a platform for you to build some social connection,
Absolutely.
Moving to an area, and it's a great reminder on the power of sport, right? That it sort of is this common language and this movement that really galvanizes people, right? It brings people together.
And the other thing, I think what's important to remember is, not every young person's motivation to participate in sports is the same, right? So you might have someone that is, passionate about hockey just because they love the game, but someone else on that team, might love hanging out with his or her teammates. But regardless, it doesn't matter, right? Whatever hooks the kid, that's the goal.
Yeah, no, and that's so good, Kris. And just hearing you share that to me speaks volumes about why you've been so successful as an educator and as a coach, because just that answer shows that it's about your students, it's about your athletes, right? It's really about them, and putting them, student and athlete centered
Yeah.
philosophy.
Well, you know what, growing up, and I'm sure you're the same way, there were adults in my life that provided me opportunities, to participate in sports. Um, like my high school basketball coach, whenever I said, "Hey, can I shoot in the gym?" If there wasn't a practice, he would let me in. And like I spent hours and hours in my high school gym, because he took the time just to open the gym for me and say, "Yeah, go ahead." And you know what? That's those are the things that, for any number of reasons, they stick with you. And then I know that's something you can't do. You can't do that nowadays. You can't open the gym and leave. But like now, what I like to do is if a kid on my team wants to shoot in the gym, I'll go to school early. I'll open the gym for them and say, yeah, shoot, and I'll stay there with them. But yeah, it's those little things. Someone did it for me, and I definitely want to do it for them as well. And I hope someone does it for my kids too.
Yeah. And for those that don't know Kris, again, Kris and I worked together for 3 years, and there were many mornings where I would come into school and going in the gym, whether it's opening the weight room or the gym, and Kris is in there, right, with his athletes that have this drive to really develop their skills as at basketball per se, but really like he practices, what he preaches. One thing that really came up for me though when you were sharing that was this idea of paying it forward,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Has that played a role? Would you say has that been a important life, value or life lesson for you to continue to pay it forward?
Absolutely. I remember my coach in high school. If he hadn't taken the time to do that, to open the gym and let me play, when I became a teacher, if a kid came to me and said, "Hey, can I shoot in the gym?" It probably wouldn't even occurred to me. I'd be like, "Well, I don't think we're allowed to do that." But because he did that, um, I definitely want to pay it forward because it had such a massive impact on my life. Just being able to be in a gym, doing something productive as opposed to doing something else that isn't as productive.
And no, and what I'm hearing from you too is, those little lessons, right? Your high school coach imparted that on you about the importance of it, which now you've imparted it to the next generation of the athletes you coach, of the students you work with. And now those are the people that are going to be working with our kids so
Yeah,
that our kids see that. So it's really an interesting way to look at it and such an important, life lesson.
yeah, yeah,
Okay. So I wanted to circle back. So you
yeah,
mentioned that one of your best experiences was working at camp,
yeah.
at a sports camp. I'd love to hear more about why that was such a great experience for you.
Oh my gosh. So it was funny. I applied. So I applied when I was it was grade 11 or 12, and my mother was prepping me for the summer, and she said, "You need to get a job this summer. So get resumes out there." And so I remember hearing an announcement at my high school that said, "Come work at Olympia Sports Camp." And to be honest with you, I'd never been to Olympia Sports Camp. I'd never heard of it. Um, and I thought, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply. Basically, you say, "Look, mom, I applied." So I applied. I got an interview. I went to the interview again to say, "Look, mom, I'm going to the interview. What more do you want me to do?" But I got the job. So then my mom was thrilled. Um, and so I go up to Olympia, and it was tough. That first summer, it was tough. I was homesick for sure. Um, I don't even know, if you had asked me the first 6 weeks if my plan was to come back next summer, I would have said no. But something happened like week 7 or 8 where like a light went on, and I just thought this is incredible. And like when you're working as a counselor at a sports camp or any camp for that matter, um, you get put into situations where, um, you can't be scared to get up in front of a crowd. You can't be scared to act silly in front of kids. And so I would say prior to going to Olympia, I was probably, I was pretty shy. I was pretty reserved. Um, and then after going to Olympia, I gained all this confidence because I was put in these situations where I couldn't be shy and reserved. I had to act silly. I had to be goofy because I wanted these young kids to have a wonderful experience. Um, so I went back the second year, and the second year, coincidentally, is when I met my wife. Um, so I met her at Olympia, and she's 3 years older than me. So I was still in high school and she was in university. Um, we weren't dating at that time, but I thought she was wonderful at the time. And then, we eventually ran into each other 10 years later. Um, but without Olympia, um, I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't have the confidence that I have today. But I also had I had phenomenal exposure to all these incredible coaches. Like like the best coaches in the province would come up week after week, and I would be assigned to one of them, and I would get to see how they ran their practices. I would get to see what they focused on. Um, not just like skill development and things like that, but what they were saying were the important things and the values that they were trying to pass on to the campers. It was my experience going to Olympia, without a doubt, was life changing. No question. I am confident I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for Olympia Sports Camp.
Again, that's such a great story. I didn't know that that's how you and your wife met. So that's, you talk about just all these serendipitous moments. But what I really got from that was when you were sharing that, you doing that, you taking a risk, right? Getting outside your comfort zone happened because you moved into action.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't, and one of the things I often share with people is, whether it's when I first start working with clients, is like we've been conditioned to think it's all about like gathering more information, right? Like I have to think about it. But really what happens, and the best experiences in our life, the biggest growth opportunities, the learning opportunities are when we move into action and we embrace the uncertainty, right? Going away, in your case, going away, sort of really moving away from home for the first time, having to stand up in front of campers, acting silly.
Yeah.
But through that whole experience, it framed, taught you so much about yourself. It helped you develop into the amazing basketball coach you are. It helped you find the love of your life, right? And again, they have amazing kids with. So it just really touches my heart that literally from one decision to get outside your comfort zone.
Well, and it's so funny you use that terminology. I don't know if you're familiar with Olympia or not, but sort of the essence of the camp, which is it's not just a camp for sports. It's the owner and director is very much a motivational speaker, and the essence of the camp is stepping out of your comfort zone and taking the bat off your shoulder. And you're right about the thinking about doing something. There was no thinking about doing stuff. It was like, okay, your campers are here. You need to go entertain them. Go do something. There was no, well, let me just mull this over for a bit. It was like, you got to go. And it was great. And my Les and I, my wife, we go back every summer to coach for a week. And we bring our children, and our children now get to participate at Olympia, and they get to experience what camp is all about. So it's Olympia Sports Camp is a really, really important piece to our family, for sure.
No, and that's great. And I just love, again, this idea of paying it forward, right? And these amazing experiences that you and Les had, now it's your kids get to experience all those, have those same memories, those same opportunities. They're sort of walking in your proverbial footsteps, right?
Yeah.
Around the camp.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, you come, anyone that knows you knows how big sports a role is, not only for you, but for your wife. How has sports formed, like what role does it play in your family's life?
Oh, it's massive. It's a massive part of who we are. I'll give you an example. So, when this past summer and the spring when we're in lockdown, and teams aren't running, there's no practices, there's no games, things like that. Um, it was the four of us, right? It was our family, um, and you can't be cooped up in your house all the time, especially when you have young kids that they have to get out. So fortunately, we had green space and parks near our house. So we called them triathlons. Now it wasn't a real triathlon, but what we would do is we'd go to the garage and we'd collect sports equipment, and then the four of us would go to this green space and we play baseball, like 2-on-2 baseball and 2-on-2 football and 2-on-2 soccer. Um, and we did this consistently, especially in the summer. And it was great because the kids are getting active. And the lessons you learn from sports, right? So those lessons, regardless if it's when you're on a team or you're playing with your brother or sister, your mom and dad, those lessons are still the same. Like, when we're playing football, we have to say to our son or daughter, you can't always be quarterback. You can't always be the one who's throwing the winning touchdown. You have to take turns, right? Or you can't, or yeah, maybe you did win the last game, but you can't win all the games, right? So these are the things that took place this summer, and they're the memories, that I know my wife and I imagine our children, we're going to cherish them because it was so simple. Um, and it was sports, and it was amazing. It was so much fun.
Yeah. And it's, what really resonated with me when you were sharing that is that sports is simply a platform to teach a lot about life lessons, right? This ability, and I mean, we've both taught and coached people for a long time, but very often, when you start to see some of the best coworkers I've had, the best students and the best athletes typically come from backgrounds of sport because they learn all the importance of how to come to, with a great attitude, how to be a great team player, how to respond when things aren't going their way, and all these, like you said, fundamental life lessons
Mhm,
that really set you up to succeed not only on the field or on the court,
mhm.
but set you up to succeed in the game of life.
Yeah. Yeah, and like, yeah, you're not always gonna be successful, and that's okay. And when you are successful, you don't get in your sister's face and say, "Yeah, I beat you," that type of thing, right? And it's these lessons where, it's in the confines of our family, but they're valuable lessons. And hopefully we some of those lessons this summer we're able to
Yeah.
stuck with the kids.
Yeah, I love that idea, right? Like getting in the face. And I had a friend I coached with for a long time, for 15 years, often said that old cliche where sports builds character. He says, no, sport doesn't build character.
It
It
really does.
reveals
Yeah.
character,
Mhm.
right? And it can tell a lot, not only when things are going well, but
Yeah.
how do you respond when things aren't going your way, right?
Yeah.
So
And when they do go well, also being a gracious winner, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. That brings me to this idea. So you are the head coach of a perennial provincial power at the high school level with senior girls. I would I've watched them. I would say one of the strongest programs nationally for any senior girls high school team. Here's the question I have for you. Since since you've become the head coach, you are competing every year for a provincial championship. You've won a provincial championship. What makes a what has been the secret of your and your team's success, like year after year?
Yeah, so I thought you might ask this question. So I put some thought into it, because it certainly isn't one thing, right? I think I think the most important factor, if there was one, it's great kids. You know, if you have, and you know, Lucas, the school where I teach at, and where I coach at, you know, we've had probably more than our fair share of phenomenal kids, and not just basketball players, but like good people. They do well in school. They're in the community. They're just wonderful kids. So I think that's the most important part, to if I could pinpoint it. The other thing that I think is so important is there needs to be support, from outside the team, like, you know, beyond the coaching staff and the players. So um, the parents of the kids, there's been wonderful support from them throughout the years. Certainly, you need a supportive staff, right? So, you know, we're going away for, you know, 4 or 5 weekends from September to, um, you know, the end of November. Sorry about that. The end of November. Um, so the staff, like kids are leaving Friday, right? So the staff has to be supportive in the way where they're like, okay, I know they're leaving, and kids are missing Friday, maybe Friday morning or all day or Friday afternoon. So support from the staff, um, and that if I can just touch on that for a second,
Yeah.
that's so important, because the kids work so hard. They work hard in practice. It's, you know, it's not always fun, right? It's a lot of effort, and for those kids to know that their teachers and their school supports them and is happy for their success, it's massive. And then the other thing is administration, the school's administration. Um, and again, we've been so fortunate at Lucas, have been super supportive of, you know, when we go to OFSA, giving us a send off, and you know, when we won, there was like a pep rally and an assembly, and the girls felt special and that they had accomplished something that was truly unique. So all of those, I think all of those things definitely play a significant role, um, in a successful program, for sure.
Yeah, and that's again, I love your answer. And again, anyone I've seen you coach, I've been around there, I've worked with your athletes, right, in the classroom and in other classes. And the one thing that that you're really humble about, but something I truly believe is attitude reflects leadership, right? And yes, the kids, we've both been very fortunate to have some amazing kids. And we're not just talking about athletes, we're talking about even better human beings.
Yeah.
But a lot of that, though, and I would just acknowledge you, is that level of success. When I'm thinking to myself as a 16-year-old, it probably would have got to my head. So I think your ability to keep them grounded is a testament to you and your leadership style in terms of really keeping your athletes and students as the center point. So I just wanted to acknowledge you and
Oh,
and
thank you.
and share that with you.
The other thing, I have great assistant coaches too. That like Elsa Donovan knows so much about basketball, and she's such a great female role model for the girls on the team. And then Josh Gray is the other assistant, and um, Josh does a lot of we have analytics. We have a team manager that does stats and follows some stats, and then Josh has to be one of the smartest people I've ever met. And what he does is he analyzes this data, and then he puts it into language that I can understand. And then, we have a discussion as a coaching staff. But yeah, they're phenomenal coaches.
Yeah. No, I love that team approach, right? Like whether it's building that culture in the school, right? By having, you know, that culture within the team, right? And then it spreads into the student body, again, with the admin, with the parents. And it speaks volumes because anyone that's ever been there, I mean, you guys, I've been at a 1:30 buyout
Yeah.
at, in September,
Yeah.
and there is literally packed, and it's, it's amazing, just that
Yeah.
atmosphere and that
And
culture.
that's the thing for those of you people that are listening that don't know what a buyout is. It's essentially the administration has approved where the kids can come and watch a game. Like that doesn't happen everywhere, right? And it's phenomenal. So you have these young athletes are now playing in front of essentially 1,500 people, and it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful, and it's not possible without the support of staff and administration. So it's great. It's really good.
Yeah, no, definitely. So obviously, being a perennial, OFSA gold medalist contender, you've had the pleasure of working with some amazing athletes, some great athletes. My question to you is, what is one thing that separates a good athlete from a great athlete? Like, is there something that you've just seen that they have sort of that X factor that really separates them?
So two things off the top of my head when I think about kids that I've coached. So I would say the one thing. Well, there's a few. There's more than two. But so the one thing I'll say is they are team first. Team first, 100%. There's no individuality where they think they are the center of attention, and they need they need to be that central figure. So that's important. So team first. The willingness to work and to get better, obviously. And then of the kids that I've seen that have achieved sort of the most success post high school and have gone on, their compete level is something to be seen. So they compete at such a high level. So I would say team first, and their compete level for sure. And yeah, what was it? I can't remember what the second thing I said was.
Yeah, willingness to work.
Oh, willingness to work hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? To be honest with you, obviously you need to work hard, but that getting back to how great the kids are, that is something that's consistent. Like I can't think of a kid that has come through and has played that isn't working as hard as they can. If I'm being totally honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I love that, that idea of, one thing that I often share with my clients or whatever I'm sharing on my Chalk Talks is this idea that anyone can be successful, right? Like success is not a secret, it's a system. And what I really loved about what you shared is there's just certain things that people do, right? Successful people are willing to do consistently what unsuccessful people aren't willing to do, right? They're willing to come in and shoot around at 7:30. I even think back to one of the best fitness classes I've ever had, that grade 11 class. The day, all season, there were girls on your team that they were willing to put the workouts in, right? Like they were doing all the lifts. And I remember after you guys won your city title, we were back in there the next day. These 5 girls were squatting and they're like, yeah, no, it's awesome, baby. Ontario championship. And it's just like that mentality is like, I don't know. I think you can sort of encourage it, but I think part of that is, some of that is just you're born and bred with that, right?
And you know what, that as you were talking, I thought of like there's something that I being able to coach, I've seen it firsthand where there's kids who in their mind, and you can see it in their face, you can see it in their effort. It's almost like they've just convinced themselves, I'm not going to lose. So we're not losing this game. And that's, I think that's what I meant when I was like the compete level, where it's just like this refusal to lose. Like, I'm going to do whatever I can. And then they, they leave it out on the court. And it's just, it's probably, prior to getting into coaching, I don't know if I'd seen it before, but I've seen it having coached now. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and what I'm hearing from you is just that common confidence, right? That when you're walking on the court, I've done everything I can to prepare to win, right? To win.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna do, I have done, I've put in the work.
Yeah.
Simple as that. And we're winning.
And
right?
it's funny because it's this the refusal to lose, and you mentioned confidence, and it is confidence, and it's a belief that, yeah, I've done everything I need to get to this point. I believe in my abilities, and by no means is it overconfidence, but it's like, no, you're right. I put the work in, and the chips might be down right now. We might be losing, but we're gonna win this game.
Mhm.
It's almost like it's like a mathematical equation, really, because the kids, they've done the work. And again, when I played, did I compete at that level? Probably not. Like, I don't think I had that switch, but they do, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah, I love that, right? Calm, when you're calm and confident, that belief just doesn't matter what other people do, right? It's like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna create the outcome I want, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you throw your best at me, that's fine.
Yeah.
I believe that I'm gonna create the result I want, which is to win.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay. I want to shift gears a little bit.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we had chatted about was, you and I have had some great conversations. Like, wellness is something that we're both very passionate about. Yes, we come from backgrounds of sport and coaching, but this idea of, vision boarding and creating this vision
Yeah.
of bigger goals. How has that idea of creating a vision played out in your life, about, just striving for, what I would say is setting the bar high so I jump over it, as opposed to setting the bar so low that I trip over it?
Right. Yeah. So yeah, we've talked about this at length. Well, I'll tell you a quick story. So I read the book The Secret, right? And it talks about vision boards. And this, and I've told you this story, and this, no word of a lie, this is 100% true. So I thought, well, I'm going to give this vision board thing a shot. So I created this vision board. We had recently moved to London. I didn't know too much about AB Lucas. Um, I knew about OFSA, but I didn't know that I would be working at AB Lucas. I'd be coaching, and I certainly didn't, know that the team I coached qualified for OFSA. But anyway, so on this vision board, and this was before, like, this was year one when we were in London. I was still working at another school. On my vision board, I put the AB Lucas logo on my vision board. I didn't even know that much about the school, but I put it on there. I didn't work there. I put it on there, and I also put the OFSA logo. And I don't know what made me do that, but I did it. And I kept that vision board, and lo and behold, 5-6 years later, I end up working at AB Lucas. And then I get to coach this or be a part of this program that is so successful. Now, there were other things on my vision board, but those were two things where, like, this stuff is real. This stuff works. And yeah, so I'm a big, and it's goal setting, right? Vision boards are goal setting. And I preach that as a teacher and a father and a coach. You have to have goals. You have to have direction, because it keeps you focused, right? You stay focused on these things, and it's a constant reminder that, yeah, this is what you're striving for. Because I think if you don't have that in front of you, looking at it every day, or once a week or whatever, sometimes you lose sight, and
Yeah.
sometimes you go a different direction. um, and I think that's why it's so important, because it keeps you focused and on track. um, and I think there's a lot to be said about the visual aspect of it too. Not just writing your goals down, but actually seeing them. It almost makes it a little bit more real. um, and I know you and I've talked about uh, like setting goals you don't even that aren't realistic.
Yeah.
And I think there's power in that. And I really, how in the world would I know that I was going to end up at Lucas and I would have the good fortune of getting to coach a team that went to OFSA,
Yeah.
let alone winning, right? It's craziness. Vision boards work.
Yeah. And it's interesting, right? Like, just you sharing that even in deeper, that it sends shivers up my spine, because you had no idea, right, about that, but subconsciously there was this want, right, where you wanted to be at Lucas, you wanted to go to OFSA, and
Mhm.
simply by doing that, now, hey, putting the vision out there, that's a thing that most people never do, right? We're talking in upwards of like 90%
Yeah.
never do that. But then by you moving into action, right? And that's what I really love about our conversation today, was the reminder of, hey, putting it out there and just leaving out there isn't gonna create anything. But by simply taking inspired action, like you talk about, holding that vision, you're going to, again, walk, right? You're going to get closer, right, to the goal, and the goal is going to happen. And that's not me just saying it, that's a law.
Hmm.
And I really love how you were sharing that the goal, I think one thing that people really fail to recognize, which I love that you talked about, are goals. And we're talking about those ones that energize you, that, excite you, but then also scare the living shit out of you.
Hmm.
That those give you a sense of purpose. And once you have purpose, to me, that's the joy of life. When you get up every day and you have that energy and that enthusiasm, that's what makes life worth living.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I talk to my own children about goals. And um, actually, I'm in my daughter's room right now, and I just looked up, and she has her goals. It's funny. She has her goals on her desk. She's got 13 goals. This is awesome, and it
Yeah,
works. Totally works.
nice. Oh, I love that. So tell me, so again, it's the start of 2021, depending on when you're watching this or something. So you work with a lot of young people.
Hmm.
You've been a successful educator for many years. You're a successful coach. What is one piece of advice you would give? Because, depending when you're seeing this is just an interesting time. And maybe for someone that's watching this, maybe they are struggling. Maybe they really don't have a goal, or they lack a sense of purpose. What piece of advice would you give them?
Uh, you know what? Maybe on the theme of vision boards. Here's the other thing. It's no secret that times are tough, right? Um, for everybody. And we keep hearing it. Things are going to get better. Life is going to get back to normal. What that will look like, who knows? But things will get better. Um, and what I if I was going if someone was struggling at this time, I would say create a vision board. Like, take some time. take some time and think about what you really want to accomplish. Um, and along with that is have, you don't have to have the whole plan laid out, but maybe have the first few steps of that plan laid out. Um, because depending on the length of the time it's going to take you to accomplish your goal, but have some, have the start of a plan and really strive for that. Because when you have a goal and you're focused, um, like you said, that can create an uplifting feeling, and you're striving towards that, whatever that is for you, every day. And now, given the circumstances, I think that's important, more so now than ever. So I guess that would be my advice is, take some time, think about what you really want to accomplish, and get a plan in place. And I would say this: don't just write it down. Go Google images of whatever, and get a vision board and put it up and look at that thing. And it's just a constant reminder. So
Yeah,
that would be it for 2021.
I love that, right? This idea of creating a vision, right? And that's one of the first things I love whenever I ask my clients, what do you want?
Yeah.
And then I love the fact that you said, move into action. You don't have to have everything figured out. You don't how, you just got to move into action.
Hmm.
So I think that that's great advice. So, Kris, I just wanted to acknowledge you for how you're choosing to make greatness, like how you're deciding, you're making the choice to pursue greatness in your life, both personally and professionally. And second, I just wanted to thank you for continuing to inspire me, to push me to be the best man, husband, and father I can be, because that is one thing that I've always looked up to you for is how you choose to show up as a family man. So thank you for that.
Well, thanks, Justin. And you know what? If I could throw something back at you,
Yeah.
um, your story is inspirational too, right? Like, I look at the choices that you've made, um, and it's just, if people don't know your story, um, they really should, pick your brain, because, what you've done is pretty remarkable, and I love that you're loving life, and you're being successful. So, I really appreciate you having me on. I'm quite flattered that you wanted to chat with me. Um, but know that, your story is inspiring for sure.
Thank you, Kris. Well, thank you everyone for joining Kris and I on the huddle today. And as always, I would love to hear any messages, any feedback, what resonated with you. Send me a message. And again, I would love to, just know what you took away from this. So have an amazing rest of your Friday, and we'll chat next week.